Hello, what's going on? Rich here, bringing you another video that is going to talk about some specific strategy when it comes to HYROX. And in this video, we're going to talk about my strategy leading into HYROX Chicago, which is the US Championships, and how I'm going to really kind of differ my pacing and approach from that in Orlando, which was my first race at it. So I'm going to walk through some different splits, and it's important to note that I'm not going to run the race according to these splits. This is just kind of a projection, what it kind of looks like and how I want to manage my energy and my efforts throughout. But because there's going to be so many different variables in these races that are not apples to apples, it's really hard to have a set amount of splits and go by those splits and kind of adjust on the fly. And there's going to be a lot more of intuitive feeling than, say, in a track 5K, where it's like splits need to be 72 seconds every single time. So if you miss one per 200, you need to speed up and kind of get back to it. It's not really going to work that way here, but I am going to kind of give a general idea of what it overall looks like. So before we really kind of get into the nuts and bolts, I'd love it if you hit us with a like and subscribe if you want to get all the latest videos when it comes to training and some athlete interviews as well. Cool, so let's get into it. So really, when it comes to any race, this is a practice that I want to just kind of share with you and put in place. So I go through a race checklist, and this is just a way to help preserve mental energy leading into the race day itself. So I just kind of go through and talk about what I'm going to eat, where I'm going to eat, where there's grocery stores, what I'm going to get at the grocery store, when I'm going to eat, all that kind of stuff. And then some packing stuff like goos I'm going to pack, gear that I'm going to pack, all I need, and a packing day checklist as well, just like what shows I'm going to watch on the flight, what podcast I need to download, or whatever that kind of looks like, getting to the actual race and then kind of going through an agenda. So this isn't necessary for optimal performance, but it does really help take a load off of your mind. So if you don't have into a practice like this, I recommend it. For me, I'm not a super organized, well-structured person like this might appear. So it took some practice to kind of put this into place. And it was a little bit of a pain up front because it's not typically how I operate. But then once it's done, it's freaking awesome. And you don't have to worry about a lick on race day. So let's get into some of these numbers here. So I went through and looked at and made some like projections on what I believe I could do in Chicago based off of the previous run in Orlando. And then on the second page here, I have Megita's splits to kind of go over and how he kind of separated from myself, because this is the main reference that I have. And I also looked at some of the previous races in the Dallas invite and going to kind of go through all that. So the main thing that I'm really going to be concerned with here is managing my energy in those first 3 to 4 stations. So my run in the previous one was right around 3:43, so still right around 5:50, 5:58 pace. I project I'm going to be a little bit faster, and that's just going to take us out a little bit, which is like around 3:42, which I think is fair. In the Dallas Invitational, they took it out so hard that they were out in like 3:05 or something. They were around 5-minute pace for the first 1,000, which is just like too fast. It's something that I can do and can hold pretty easy for a full K, but I don't think it's going to really help the long-term benefit of this race. So if it goes out that fast, I'm going to do my best to really keep it easy and chill. And then in ski erg, I want to be pretty similar to the previous one. These splits include the rocks zone because that's my only reference, which is just a kind of transition zone. So just because it says 404 doesn't mean I'm going to be rowing or erging 202. I'm going to be pushing closer to 150. I think that that's something that's really sustainable for me. 150 to 150, 152. In Orlando, I was right around that. I think I was higher toward 152, 154. But I think 150 is a really good spot for me on this. And then that will keep the second run, again, easy. On the second run in Orlando, I was a couple seconds behind Megita. So I went to make that effort up just to run with him, just because it wasn't very hard. It wasn't very fast. It didn't need to be. And I just wanted to kind of be in the race. So again, 3:42 is where I think it's going to be an ideal pace for myself without going overboard on that. And that's going to help keep it sustainable each time. These runs really don't need to be like hard and fast. They just need to be consistent and smooth. And that's something where I need to really put a focus on. So I'm not pushing back and forth. It's not going much slower. It's not going much faster. It's just like you get out of the zone, the rocks zone, and then I'm cruising. So the sled push on the previous in Orlando, I was really focused on. I wanted to put a lot of effort into it just so I was in the race. And that is what I did. I did it in 4:18, where I figured it'd be right around 4 minutes. So 4:18 with the rock zone, which I'm guessing was putting probably 30 to 35 seconds on it. So it was under 4 for the entire amount of time when I was pushing, which I'm actually really pumped with that I could just do, but it really did take its toll. And you could see that on the run number 3, where I went from 3:37 to 4:12, and then Magida put a ton of time on me in that third run here. So you can see he put 26 seconds on that run, where he put 14 seconds on the sled push still, and then it wasn't enough to really make up for that. So he put 40 seconds on me on that push, just because I was so dead from the actual run itself. So from the push itself, that the run just couldn't be there. And that's where my strength needs to lie, is my ability to run and run fast. I'm going to be probably the fastest runner, maybe aside from Magida, in this entire field. And that's not something that is like boisterous or anything like that. It's just how it is. So I can't have my runs be this slow. I can't leave this time on the table here. It just can't happen. So I need to manage my effort on the actual push. So I want the push to feel easier. And maybe the push itself, like the sled, it might be moving a little bit slower, but I think my energy levels will be a little bit higher as I'm pushing it a little bit easier. I thought that I needed to push at 100% to even move the thing, but that's not true. That was me not trusting in my strength. So I thought I was either not going to move it or pushing it at 100% to move it. I'll probably have to push it at 90%, but that's still saving some energy there. And that's something I need to trust myself in doing, and not getting caught up too much in the race, because it's really too early. You can see after the third run, it's only about 20 minutes into the race that ends up being about a little over an hour. So it's really, really too early to push too hard at this point. So I want to be a little bit slower overall, but I want the push to be about 20 to 25 seconds slower, but the run to make up almost all that time and have it feel easy. Because 350, again, it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be fast. It should be something that I can do. And same thing with the pull. The pull, I was pulling pretty good. I got excited into the race. I had a great pull to kind of catch up into the race. So I think this is going to be a good spot, again, just to kind of hang on. This seems to be the separator in these races, where you kind of end up on the pull is kind of where you're going to end up in the entire run. I think a lot of people end up exhausted after the push. So they get to the pull and they're freaking tired, and it takes them a long time, and then they're not really moving in and out. So I want to keep this, again, this energy needs to be conserved at this point, and just pulling it however I can. And then moving into the fourth run, I want to kind of be back into those 340s. And then this, I'm counting on the sled push and sled pull, managing that effort, because I think I can make up a lot of time on the zones in the back half of this event. And my running has been better. My workouts have been better. I didn't have a ton of time to practice this compromise running leading into the last one, where I have had a couple weeks of consistent efforts in doing those workouts specifically. So there's no reason it shouldn't be better. I spent a lot of time doing burpees just to kind of get that feeling, and I think I can make up some time here. So I'm projecting that I can make up almost 35 seconds. And I don't think that's out of the question, where Hunter does this zone in almost 2 minutes, and Magida in Dallas in Orlando did it in 3:14, but that's with the rock zone. So I think there's room to be made up here. And again, I'm making this run back at that 340s, and I'm going to make up a lot of room in these runs in the back half, between 5 to 10 seconds on each one of them, because they went so poorly last time. And then after the burpee broad jumps, I'm going to take a bit of nutrition. So last time I had a goo packet on me, but I didn't have a plan on when to take it. So I took it after the lunges in my 8th run, just to hope I wasn't going to die. I was feeling like some cramps in my calves, and things were it was just going really poorly. But I didn't necessarily need to have I didn't have any plan. So I'm going to bring a Morton gel, which is the gel that was developed and used by the Sub 2 project. So you don't need water at all. It doesn't leave a sticky, super tasteful gloss in your mouth, kind of how the goo packets do, or like a honey stinger would. It's a jello consistency. It goes down super easy. It doesn't like sit in your mouth and take like effort to swallow. It just kind of goes right down. So it's actually meant to be worked to be taken at a high effort, where Some of these other goos are meant for these longer distance events, or if you're like on the bike where it's not going to be as much exertion and you're not going to be breathing as hard. But in a race like this, you're going to be really breathing hard and pushing out a lot of energy. So using a goo will really help. Not using goo, using the Morton will help make sure that I'm getting a little bit of energy and just give me a little bit more peace of mind. I mean, the race is still short enough that I'm not going to necessarily run out of available carbohydrates, but you get anaerobic in a lot of different places here and you can use up quite a bit. So just a way to kind of top things off. So this is where I'm going to take the goo leading into on the fifth run leading into the row. And the row, I have time here. There's definitely time to be made up on the row. It didn't go well last time. It took me a minute to get in and out of it. I was pretty tired at this point, and I ended up being like 10 to 12 seconds behind Magida on this, which I shouldn't be. It just shouldn't be that much. I'm a pretty good rower, and I just kind of might have just lost focus on this, where I should be around like 150, I think pretty standard. I think I was more toward like 154, 155. So right there is 10 seconds, and I just figured depending on how I work on the transitions, because these are working the transitions in and out. So I have like probably 5 or 10 seconds to make up on the transitions alone in there. So leading into the sixth run, which was my fastest in the previous race, because after the row, you get a little bit of a reprieve, and I was able to run a little bit faster. So you can see after the sixth run, I'm going to be hoping to kind of maintain this effort of 3:45, and that's just going to kind of be right back on the clock. So again, after being a little bit slower on the first 3 stations, I've gained 1 minute 15 seconds on the middle 3 stations, and then I lost a ton of time on the last 2.5 stations on the last one. So the farmer's walk was a huge miss for me last time. I wore gloves, I wore receiver gloves, and I had wristbands on. So I was hoping to keep my hands dry, but it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. I had my wristbands a little bit higher than I should have. I should have worn them on my wrist. I wore them up here just to kind of keep a little bit space. I just don't know. I just don't think I wanted to cover my watch. So as I was here, it felt really constricted on my forearms, and after the rope, the sled pull and the row, I could feel my forearms pushing into the sweatband, and I could feel that pump kind of pushing into it, and it felt restrictive. So it's probably restricting a little bit of blood flow. I'm probably thinking about it too much. Probably didn't determine any type of my performance because of that. But also the gloves on. The gloves were completely soaked. So I was able to kind of go down and back. It was like 4 times down and back once, and I had to set it down, and then I had to set it down almost every 50 meters or so after that because I was so sweaty. I ended up taking off the gloves, trying to wipe my hands on the carpet and everything like that, so it didn't really go well. So I'm not going to wear gloves. I might potentially wear gloves and put them on for the pull. I'm going to wear pants that have good-sized pockets, so I might put gloves on for the pull, and I might use the gloves for that, and then ditch them just so I don't overheat. And then in my other pocket, I'm going to have like 2 little towels. I'm going to have little towels that I'm going to take out before the farmer's walk on the 6th run and wipe my hands dry. So that's one of the real reasons why I'm taking the goo on the 5th run, or the Morton gel on the 5th run, is just so I can then on the 6th run get ready to use these towels. So I'm going to get at the towels. If there's chalk there, I'm going to chalk up, and then I'm going to go. I'm going to stick the towel like in my pants and just go with it. I need to set it down and then wipe off again. So this to me is the best option to try to keep my hands dry, because my grip let out when they were super wet. So I have at least 1.5 minutes to gain here. Like 4 minutes in the farmer's walk is just absurd. It's absurd to have gone that slow, and there's a ton of time to make up here. And then right after that, like the run shouldn't be that hard. You can see I was at 3:51 after the farmer's walk there, and this was a disaster, and I was dying here. So I don't think it's a far cry to just run a little bit faster after having some positive momentum coming out of the farmer's walk. The lunges, same deal. I think at this point I was just kind of ready to be done. So I do think I have a full minute on these lunges here, and just by pure effort. There doesn't necessarily need to be anything that's really going to change the actual outcome of it besides effort and just moving. And I think having some positive momentum coming out of the farmer's walk and that run, I'll be able to kind of take off another minute here, because this was really, really poor as well. And I'm pushing this run closer to 4 minutes because this run on 8th was really, really bad. I was pretty much out of the race at this point in Orlando. I was kind of feeling bad for myself. And so I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen here. There's going to be a lot more competition. And then I think the run will be a little slower, but of course it'll be slower, but I don't think it needs to be 7:40, 7:30 pace or whatever this was. And then I think I have a couple of seconds here on the wall balls. I don't have, it's not going to be a complete game changer. But I think that there was a lot of rest worked in here, and I was still like not bad. So I think 4:30 is reasonable, where people in the past, like Hunter, is closer to 4 flat. So I think there is some space up to be made. So I think I can make up a full on the runs, just being a little bit more consistent, make up like a minute and 20 some seconds. On the stations, I have a ton of time to make up almost just on the farmer's walk and the lunges. And just on those 2 stations alone, I can make up a ton of time. And I mean, again, this is a time that's just projected based off of this. The pacing is going to be all over the place, and it's not going to be right where I think it's capable of. The 62.25 is just what it looks like after this run. It's just like minor tweaks. There's not huge, big adjustments, but just a little bit here or there. It's going to cut off time. I don't know if this is a time that I'm going to run. Again, I'm not too worried about it. I just want to run the race and make sure I'm managing my energy well between the 3rd and the 6th station, and just kind of maintaining in there. That needs to be the premise, and not really pushing as hard as I can to do anything Herculean or anything that is going to really move the needle the most for me. So this is really the idea behind this whole race event, and just kind of doing my race, and it should go well. I think that I have the fitness here. I think my running should go better than last time. Again, the time, I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to follow these splits to a T. I'm just going to kind of get through it the best that I can and push as hard as possible. So cool. So that's what the race is looking like. I'll make sure to drop next week a recap on how it all went. If you're liking these videos, hit me with a like, hit me with a subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.